Since it is 7:01, I don't know what this beeping is. Oh, here's Kevin. It's just people wanting to be admitted. Okay, could do without that every time. But can you all hear that beeping when I hear it?
I don't hear anything.
Okay. Maybe it's just on the recording. Since it is 7:01, I will call to order the Monday, September 26th meeting of the Norton Finance Committee, and we'll do a roll call for attendance. Kevin.
Here.
Paula.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Joe.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
Amy.
Here.
Bodie.
Here.
That was a test and you passed. Zach.
Here.
All right, and I am also here, so that shows that 10 of us are here. All right, where shall we begin, Mr. Units?
Well, let me start with just letting you, I don't know if I let you know at the last meeting that we recently went through the process with Standard & Poor's again, and they reaffirmed our AA plus rating for when we got to borrow. In their view of the town, some of the things they pointed out was a growing tax base with development across all sectors, new financial management policies and strong institutional framework score, stable revenue and expenditure profiles with maintenance of high reserves and cash balances. And as you know, we worked on that financial policy manual last year. And some of the things in that policy were to target unreserved fund balances of 5 to 10% of the general fund operating expenditure budget. And stabilization fund should be 5 to 17% of the general fund operation budget. In free cash, we should have a target of 2 to 5% of the budget. And water and sewer retained earnings should have a target of 20%. So if I can just share my screen before we get started on these articles to just go over the free cash, because we'll be using quite a bit of the free cash. So our free cash for certification was $3,675,547. And what we generally do is we hold $280,000 of that in anticipation of possible snow and ice expenses, and $700,000 for next year's FY24 budget. And then tonight we have to re-vote prior year bills, but $5,993.83. Separation expenses of $70,168. And then we have operating budget amendments of $1,205,751. That $907,433 will come from free cash. And then my recommendation for capital improvement appropriation is $800,000. And the SPAC settlement that you already voted on, $28,560. And OPEB, $115,000, which would be $5,000 more than we put in last year, and stabilization, $200,000. So at the end, we'll have $568,392.17 that is unappropriated and will be staying as free cash. And, we don't know what the economy is going to bring for next year. We do know that the train project, we're going to have payments of $1 million next year on that project, and we're not sure on when the credits are coming in on that, so we have to keep some money towards that. And just also in our policy manual on the free cash, what we target, as I said earlier, the way things line up, first is snow and ice deficit, second is general stabilization fund, third would be other stabilization funds, then capital budget expenditures, OPEB trust fund, and then other expenditures, what we say would target our free cash towards. Any questions on the free cash? All right. So do you want to just go through the articles from number 1 right on through?
Sure.
Okay. Number 1 is unpaid bills, and we had another bill that came in of $250. This was for an expense for the work on the elevator in the police station. So if you could revote prior year bills for a total of $5,993.83 from free cash.
Any discussion about the $250 for the elevator repair? Didn't think so. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to revote Article 1 prior year bills as amended in the total
Madam Chair,
$5,993.83. Sorry. Competing voices. Who's going? Paula? Bill?
I was going to try.
Go ahead, Paula.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
vote that we revote Article 1 to recommend $5,993.83 of free cash to pay the unpaid bills. Did I say that correctly?
I'll second that to reconsider Article 1.
Reconsider.
Sure.
Duly noted.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. And we shall vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I too am a yes. That is 10. What's next?
All right. Next is Article 2. This is separation expense. And my recommendation.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we
Sorry. Do we have to vote?
yeah, we voted to
Recommend the
reconsider
amount.
it. Now we have to vote it.
Got it. No problem. Okay. So the chair will entertain a motion to recommend Article 1 in the amount of $5,993.83.
Madam Chair,
Cash. Yes.
I move that we vote to recommend $5,993.83 of free cash for the unpaid bills.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. We shall vote again. Kevin?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I too am a yes. All right, so Article 2, separation expenses.
Separation expense, I'm recommending $70,168 from free cash. This would be for a retirement in the treasurer collector office and also 2 in the fire department.
You said 70,000?
$70,168. The request was $140,616, but in the contracts in the fire department, we can spread these retirements out over a number of years. So we don't need it all this year.
Okay. So are we voting the entire amount or do we need to know the exact amount for
Um,
fire?
The request is for $70,168.
So we can vote the entire amount for the treasurer collector and the other fire expenses, separation expenses.
Yeah, I'm only recommending the $70,168 this year.
I see. And that is only for the treasurer collector?
That would be $11,110 in the treasurer collector's office, and the balance would be in the fire department.
Gotcha. Any questions or discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes. Steve, is
Mike,
there any-
could you give us a breakdown of what we're actually paying for? How many hours? Is it vacation time, sick time, and how many hours?
I know in the treasurer's office, it's 4 weeks vacation and not very much sick time at all. I know James is on. I don't know if he remembers the number on that. And fire, the majority would be sick time. I don't know the breakdown of that between the two of them.
Is that something we can get?
I'll send that to you.
And just refresh my memory, but
Yeah.
what's the reason that these cannot be included in the regular operating budget?
They could if they know in advance, but a lot of times, people don't decide that they're gonna retire, or they don't go out on a disability retirement till after the budget's approved.
And with that said, will we be putting if we're allocating it over multiple years, will you be putting those expenses in the budget for the future years?
One of the reasons we don't do that is because then it looks like the budget gets inflated. We try and keep it as isolated out of the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Cody?
can I ask, Mike, why, if we know that it's coming up, so if we approve 70,000, but we know we've got another 70,000 that has to be allocated over the coming years, why that wouldn't go into the operating budget, even as a line item for pensions? Because my assumption here is if we only approve 70 now, and you don't put it into the operating budget, then you're going to come back to us for free cash for the remaining 70,000 over the course of the next couple of years. Is that right?
Correct.
And is there a reason why it wouldn't just be a line item in the operating budget if we know it's going to happen?
Just, what I had said to you before, we try and keep it isolated out of the budget so that the budgets don't become inflated. It's once a bottom line gets to a certain level, it's always harder to get money out of a department. They'll say, well, that was retirement expense, so you don't need that, but it always becomes an issue.
Mike, do we have something like a non-recurring expense line item we can book it against, or something that's not ongoing business?
Say that again, a non-recurring.
Like in a budget, you have things like one-off expenses, like one-time non-recurring expenses are not due to ongoing operations.
They could have that in the budget too. The problem is, things cross different fiscal years, so that's why we appropriate it as an article so that we're not concerned about the crossover into the next fiscal year.
So is there a carryover? So we know that there's 70,000 that's needed, and we know which department it has to be allocated to.
Yep.
But we're basically running a line on free cash already for next year. So we know that there's 70,000 coming out of free cash over the next year or two.
Yes. And we do have, an account from prior years that there may be money in that we can use that also.
Is there a reason why we don't account for pensions coming out of the departments that we're paying pensions to?
It's just that we've always separated it out. We've always separated out the separation expense. We've never put it in the budgets.
Okay. I guess my question is, regardless of how we've always done it,
Yep.
like, why are we not allocating known amounts to the department that we know it's coming from, when we know it's coming over the, like, how many more years are we going to be paying out that 70,000? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3?
It'll be 2 years after this year.
So we know it's 35,000 next year and 35,000 the following year.
Yep.
And there's no way for us to put a one-off line item of non-recurring expense to that department to account for it, so that it's not coming out of free cash every year.
Well, if we use free cash for the budget, so it would be more or less the same thing, and it's allocated to the department as needed.
Is there an annual reconciliation? Because it seems like when it's coming out of free cash, it's almost like if the department's budget, so this is for fire department. So the fire department's budget for the next 2 years is actually $35,000 more than what they're submitting for, because they're just accounting for these pensions coming out of free cash. Am I wrong in saying it that way?
I'll let the town accountant answer that one. James?
How's everybody doing? The reason we're paying it that way is because it crosses fiscal year, but the money is allocated to each department. So it sits on the article, and then towards the end of the year, if say the fire department has a surplus on their payroll account, we may not even have to transfer the funds. So we kind of keep them there until the end, if we can. The proper way to account for it, and the auditors have recommended that in the past, is for us to set up a trust fund. Right now, our liabilities is over $1 million for payouts. To be fully funded would be great. Then we could just transfer the money from the trust fund, or pay this separation expenses right out of the trust fund. But unfortunately, cash is tight, budgets are tight, and we're doing it on a pay-as-you-go basis, and it's the way we've always done it. Putting it into the article gives us a little bit of leverage that we can have with the money approved. And if when needed, we can transfer it right out of that article into the fire department salary budgets to pay for those expenses if they're close to running a deficit in the salary account, which they probably will be if it doesn't if maybe not the whole 70, but most of it will probably have to be transferred by the end of the year.
And it's going to have to come out of free cash.
Well, it's either free cash or raise and appropriate. If we don't take it out of free cash, say there's no free cash next year, it will come out of the taxes, or it has to be from somewhere. To me, there is no distinction between being free cash or taxes or local receipts or state aid. It comes from the whole bucket. We have a $60+ million budget that is funded through free cash, taxes, local receipts, fees, and it bottom line at the end, it doesn't matter where you're taking it from. It's all going into the same bucket.
I guess my concern or my question is that the understanding that I have is free cash is to pay out things that may not be foreseen, and we know exactly how much this is going to be over the next 2 years, and I just don't know why it would be accounted for from a free cash standpoint.
No, you may be confusing it with the reserve fund, which is the budget line item for the finance committee. That it's $150,000 that's set as budget for those unforeseen expenses. Free cash can be used for any legal purpose.
Right,
But it doesn't have to be unforeseen. Matter of fact, we appropriate every year about $600,000 to $700,000 for the following year's budget in order to help out the costs.
is it not accurate to say that free cash is generally used for uncertain amounts? Like we may know, like snow removal, we know that there is going to be some amount that we pay for snow removal, so we have some at least set aside for that. But for amounts that we know exactly how much it's going to be and exactly who it gets coded back for, why that isn't coded back to them under the operating budget as opposed to using free cash to pay for it.
Well, the reason we use free cash is
I would say that is inaccurate.
say that again.
I was just telling Cody that that's not correct. Every year we use free cash to fund OPEB, stabilization, and capital every year.
Free cash is pretty much the only source of income or the only source of funding we have readily available, especially once the tax rate is set. At the special town meeting in May, that would be the only available funding source. If we have a snow and ice deficit that we want to fund or supplement any budgets at that point, it would come from free cash. If we don't have any free cash, then we would be forced to do transfer from one department to another.
Right, and I'm not saying that it's not right to use the free cash for those expenses that we need. That's what it's there for. What I'm saying is, if we know exactly how much this is going to be for, why isn't it line items to that department over the course of the term that we know it's going to exist? It's going to be $35,000 next year. It's $70,000 this year, spread between two departments. It's $35,000 next year to fire, and $35,000 the year after. Why is there not a line item? Because as far as I know, fire and police have never come under budget on their annual expenditure on salaries, and we know that this is there. So why are they not submitting, or why isn't there a line item under that department for it?
They have come under budget quite a few times, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but 50,000 here, 30,000 there, depending on the year. You know, the reason, as I said before, let's say close to the end of the year, the fire chief thinks he's going to be able to make the year without the transfer. We wouldn't transfer that money and keep it aside for a future retirement, because we know we have over $1 million in liabilities for retirement separation expenses that are not currently funded. My preference would be to set up a trust fund and have all of these retirement separation articles go right into that trust fund, and then we could either transfer the funds from the trust fund into the department that's requiring it. That's one way of doing it, but you know, this is the way we've been doing it. It's been working okay for the past few years. If there's a change that you guys want to do, I'm not opposed to it either. But it will bottom line, as far as, you know, if we're funding it from free cash or from taxes, it's just the wording of it. I mean, we could be, if you look at the supplemental articles that we're doing today, a portion of it is from raise and appropriate, and a portion of it is from free cash. The way I look at it is just the bottom line.
So, can I ask what it would entail to set up a trust to pay that? Because free cash, I mean, if we're earning anything on free cash, it's minimal, and under a trust, I expect there to be, you know, better potential market returns on it. And what would it entail to set up a trust?
It would be a town meeting vote. It's stuck in the trust fund for separation expenses, and then we could fund it with free cash. We could even fund it with the remaining balances on the retirement separation articles that we currently have from previous retirements and from the current one that we're doing right now.
And who would have to bring that before town? Who would have to present that as a?
It could be anybody, I believe. Could be the finance committee. The finance committee, I guess, could propose it. Be nice if the select board proposes it, you know, through the town manager.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Steve?
Mike, have we ever tried to negotiate these kinds of things out of each agreement? It just, with cash running so tight, these surprises come up. If we can manage them in different ways, I'd be all in favor for that. I mean, so we can eliminate the surprise. Is this worth 1% or whenever we're negotiating a contract?
We have talked about it, and what was wanted on the other side was too much. And it's something we'll look at all the time. And what we did in the last few contracts was we got it to be spread out. It used to be when someone retires, you got to pay them out right away. Now we have it at least spread out 2 or 3 years in the contracts.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bill?
can I just clarify something? We have $1 million worth of these separations that we haven't funded. Is that what James said earlier?
Potential.
Potential. Basically, we have staff, firemen, policemen, town employees in general that have accrued vacation and sick time. That if they were to retire tomorrow, all of them at once, which not going to happen. But if they were, we would be on the hook. Yeah.
Okay. How many do we actually have? Like, is it just this 140 currently, or is there more than the 140 we're talking about?
The 140 is people that have actually retired or are retiring within the next 6 months that we know of.
Well,
As far as, we could have people there that could potentially be owed, say, $30,000, but they don't plan to retire for another 10 years. So if they're going to use the time before they retire and not have to pay it out, or what's going to happen,
Right. So I guess my concern was if there's a lot of this, where we're doing, 70,000 today and then payment plans for the next 2 years, how are we keeping track of that? But if it's only this one set at the moment.
Yeah, we have a couple of others that are in the last year of their agreements. In the past, it used to be paid all as a lump sum upon retirement, but now some of the contracts allowed for the town to pay it over 3 years. Some of the retirees prefer it that way anyway, because they don't want to get hit with the taxes all at once.
Can we get a summary then of how many of these actual, that we owe, not potential in the future, but actual that we owe? Can we get a summary of that to just see how broad it is?
Yeah, there's only like three people on it.
Madam Chair?
I don't need the names. I just need the kind of the numbers and the years, how far out we're going.
Okay.
Kevin, is that you?
I was going to add, James, I don't know how hard this is, but we have number of FTEs, we have historic retirement rates, and we have a total liability. So could we not start to forecast what our predicted liabilities will be? You could spread the total liabilities on a run rate of what our average retirees are per year. We're going to have this expense every year, and at least start talking about it annually as opposed to just paying it after the fact out of free cash every year.
We could estimate it. It's similar to what pension plans do. If we establish the trust fund, it would probably take care of that issue. But
James, do we have to disclose this on the financials, this liability?
It is disclosed on the financials.
As a footnote?
Yeah, it's in there. I'll have to look at I don't have it in front of me right now, but that might be acting up. But I'll have to. I can get back to you and show you what page is on.
Okay.
Should be told.
Just to follow up on Kevin's question there, if we are looking at considering setting up the trust and we've got $1 million of potential liabilities, does it have to be funded at $1 million on day one, or can that be ramped up to the $1 million over the course of 4 or 5 years?
What I foresee happening is it would be funded similar to the way we're funding these articles right now, where you would put in 70 to 100,000 until you build it up, and then once it's built up, to where it's making enough interest to kind of be self-sustaining, we would be taking the money right out of it and only replace when it gets below a certain level to be determined.
And would
And
that
if you
funding have to come from free cash, or could it come out of operating budget?
It could come out of any available funding source.
And there'd be no requirement. You don't have to put a certain amount in every year. It's just what we feel we'd have available that year.
I mean, we could potentially go a year or two without having to pay anyone if nobody retired. That's why it's kind of hard to estimate, a figure per year. And like this one where you had high-ranking officials retiring, it all depends on who retires, and when. But we could go a year or two and not have to pay anything out.
Any further discussion or questions?
Madam Chair, I have a kind of related question.
Go ahead.
Mike, this is probably a question for you. In the when you negotiate the contracts, do you negotiate how much vacation time folks can accrue before it's capped, or they have to start using it to kind of lessen our liability?
Vacation, they can't carry over. All
Okay.
they can carry over is 5 or 10 days into the next fiscal year, but they can't continue to carry vacation. It's really just the sick time for the most part. And a lot of people, the way vacation is, it's earned. So right now, people are earning, so someone that gets 4 weeks vacation, they're earning 4 weeks vacation as they work this year. So if they retire on July 2nd next year, they get paid that 4 weeks vacation. So because they're earning it.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion on Article 2? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend Article 2 separation expenses in the amount of $70,168. Do we need to read the two departments?
You don't have to. The town accountant will allocate it as needed.
Okay. The amount of $70,168 total from free cash.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paula.
I move that we recommend Article 2, $70,168 from free cash into separation expenses.
Second.
I'll take a roll call vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I too am a yes, that's 10. All right, we're moving on to Article 3.
Okay, Article 3 is the operating budget amendments.
And everyone
see.
received a new,
Correct.
via email today, I believe. Everyone received a new amended version of that included a higher amount for Bristol Aggie.
Mhm. So the budget operating amendments, as you can see, total $1,205,751, and of that, $298,318 will be raised and appropriate. That is for the senior community center and the athletic fields, because that's debt excluded.
Any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Sandy.
just a question about the overtime. I see that the amount that you recommended was lower than what the ask was. Is that going to be an issue? What do they usually spend in the past?
In the past, we haven't fully funded the requests. We don't know whether it's going to become an issue or not. I know if you talk to the chiefs, they'll tell you they're concerned, and understandably, because they don't know what's going to occur during the year. Hopefully they can make it through the year, what we're recommending. But we just don't know, because we don't know what kind of incidents are going to occur, or who's going to go out injured or sick. So, they may have to come back. We don't know. They didn't have to come back last year, I don't think. So we just hope that they'll be able to get through with this.
Was this in line with what they received last year, the 44,000 for police? Is that similar to what they used last year? What you
It
actually
is.
Okay.
Yes.
Other questions?
Madam Chair?
Madam Chair?
I think Joe got in first. You can come up next, Steve.
Mike, I have to ask for
Sure.
the dealer of weights and measures, what did we pay $7 for?
So for the first time since I've been here, they increased their rate a little bit. It was $2,500 always before. So rather than have to hire someone to go out and do check on all the scales, gasoline pumps, things like that, it's easier to contract with the state. And recently there was someone who was asking about hiring someone to do the work of a sailor in weights and measures, and I mentioned that we use the state, and they were kind of shocked, and they were checking into it. It's a easier way to do it than it's hard to find someone that's going to work and do that job for $2,500 a year.
Okay. Thank you.
Steve, did you have a question?
I did. Just quick, I know when we were going through the budgets, we were talking about cyber insurance, and I don't remember where we ended up. Is this insurance, the $10,000 supplement, is that anything to do with cyber? And if not, what are we going to be doing to address potential cyber insurance going forward?
Yep, I don't have all the insurance in front of me, so I can't tell you. I will check on that and see what the cyber insurance was. I know that the town accountant looked at the budget as it was right now, and we haven't paid any bills yet to UMass for Medicaid reimbursement, and there was only $9,000 remaining. So he was concerned that there wasn't going to be enough in there to cover future expenses on that.
And then just follow through on what percent complete are we on these train projects?
I'm not sure. Someone from the school department might be able to tell. I know that they've been moving forward aggressively. And I know that they were waiting on solar panels, but maybe someone from the school department can help you with that.
Yeah, Mike, this is Joe. To Steve's question, we just met today with Train, been meeting every week. The punch lists are being created. Heat will be on in the next few days, but prior to the 15th of October, in the buildings that are have the new boilers and all the new systems, and solar came in either Sunday or today. Certain solar parts came in, and they'll begin installation first week in October.
And so just percent complete over all of these projects? Because this is what's happening, right, Mike? If, we bond these things, but we have till we have the full payment to make, correct?
Correct.
So what percent complete are we right now on all the train projects?
I'd say about 80%. The major issue right now is the solar panels outside.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Bill.
So Mike, it looks like under the Norton Public Schools that we will be funding the regular transportation budget. Where will the remaining money come from for the special education and tuition increase?
I'll let the superintendent talk. We talked about this last week. I know he's got, he has concerns and with the special ed out of district placements that he has. Joe, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, Mike, through you to Joe. So the biggest issue is the last 3, I think it's now 4 fiscal years, we've put forward our special education issues when they've come up right after the beginning of the July 1st year and the money wasn't there. So we'll continue to do what we did last year and the year before, and I believe also the year before. I believe this is the 4th consecutive year where we'll maintain those numbers so that there's no surprise in May. Last year, the number was over 300,000. We ended up not needing any. The year before that, we ended up needing 198,000 at the spring town meeting. So this is pretty much a placeholder for issues that we're seeing. The out of district transportation can change. It can go from 156 to 154 to 134 to 194 in a matter of days, depending if we have a move-in and the transportation costs. And the same thing with the placements. We are at our all-time low for out-of-district placement. We're at 33 students. That's fantastic because we get to teach our kids, keep them here. In certain instances, we can't. The negative of that is your success as a school district in being able to create your own internal programs also means that your circuit breaker number is down. So that take the 40,000 off the top. Everything else at 70% or so comes back. Some years it's 75, some years it's also 50, but most recently at 75. So if you have $100,000 placement, the first 40 we own, the next 60 you might get 75% of that back in the following fiscal year. That payment comes in after July 1st, and we allocate it as the first thing that we utilize for special ed tuitions. And that doesn't really change during the year because unless there was a mix-up of some sort. But I will tell you that we're down hundreds of thousands of dollars because of that success. But it's either paid for one student at 100,000 or keep potentially 3 students in district for 100,000. If you were to count, for example, the teachers and paraprofessionals' health costs of the town.
So just so that I'm clear, so what you're saying here is some number will likely show up in the Springtown meeting to cover those?
Yeah, there's a potential like last year that this number could come down significantly, get down to 0 even. For example, if all of a sudden a student moves out, we may no longer be paying that tuition. We may only be paying a percentage of that tuition. That's what's happening in one of our cases that's come to town. This is a move-in resident after July 1st, so that's a split cost. So that's how the system works. The biggest issue is the real concern around transportation. If you haven't heard, we've been waiting for almost 2 fiscal years for a minibus. You just can't get it. To that is bus drivers. Bloom, our bus company, has been awesome. Can't say anything but positive things. But we're seeing the hit in the transportation line pretty hard on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
I think Sandy, I heard you. I don't know who the other person was.
I just a question for Dr. Valletta about the special ed. I heard Ted said at one of the school committee meetings that you have some potential students coming up that will be a cost to district. I wonder if you've ever considered or if the town has ever considered a special ed reserve fund that we could have put some money into. I know that was in 2017 given as an option. Has the town considered using that option?
The school committee did file a article pre-COVID, probably 4, maybe even 5 years ago. Mike, you might remember. And the FinCom at that time wasn't really interested in creating another stabilization account, is typically what they're called in other communities. What it is it, in some ways, I guess, would work a little bit like the trust discussion you just had earlier today, where you're putting either any saved money or any potential money that could come out of, again, a free cash or the operational budget, and you move it in there. There are some towns having some great success with it in terms of that $300,000 placement comes in, and you've got $500,000 in there, or even you only have $300,000 in there, and you're able to take out $100,000 of it. So now it's not hitting that particular year's operating budget. So I think it's a philosophical issue. I defer to the school committee and to the FinCom and Mike to have that discussion.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Zach.
Joe, on the transportation budget, what percentage of that is fees? I mean, what is the breakdown between what come out of the tax rolls to what you're collecting in bus fees? And secondly, is what are the variables in the Bloom contract? Are we fixed? You say there's variables. What are they exactly?
We have no variables with them on their side. The biggest side is personnel and the increase to personnel that could happen. But in terms of gas and all that, we're solid. We signed a 5-year that's pretty aggressive and only sees minimal increases. The biggest issue is if buses go down in terms of personnel, then there's always the potential that we have to use yet another party. We've had to do that in special education in the past. And that's where you see these hourly rates really go through the roof. I don't have the percentage breakdown, Zach, for bus fees, but I will tell you that we're probably collecting somewhere around $150,000 to $180,000 in fees. I will have Christine Hadfield, who's on with us tonight. I'll have her email Bonnie tomorrow morning to give you the breakdown of the fees.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. So if my math is correct, the raise and appropriate amount is here as $298,318, which makes the free cash amount $907,433.
Correct.
So if there's no other discussion or questions, the chair will entertain a motion for Article 3 in the amount of $1,205,751, with $298,318 coming from raise and appropriate and $907,433 coming from free cash.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paul?
I move that we recommend the operating budget supplements, $907,433 from free cash, $298,318 from raise and appropriate.
Second.
I'll do a roll call vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I too am a yes. That's 10. And unanimous. What comes after 3? 7? 6?
6.
6.
Okay. So I'm recommending that we fund capital improvements with $800,000 of free cash. Right now, the balance in capital is $169,420. And after the next article would be to approve amendments to the capital plan. And those include $35,000 for data processing, police department, $21,000, fire department, $50,000, $52,500, and library $50,000. So a total of $158,000 $500. And with that 800,000, it will leave us with a balance of $810,920 for next year's capital plan.
Any questions? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to, do I need to see the numbers at the bottom there?
No, it'd just be to appropriate $800,000 from free cash for the capital improvement fund.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion for Article 6 to appropriate $800,000 from free cash to the capital fund.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paul.
I move that we recommend Article 6 to move $800,000 from free cash to capital improvements fund.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. I'll do a roll call vote. Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
and I too am a yes. That's 10 and unanimous.
Madam Chair,
Who was that? Was that Joe?
that was me, yep.
Yep.
The document that Mike just showed on the screen, am I missing it in our packet or did we not get that?
I don't believe we got that. I don't have it either.
Okay. Mike, is it possible to get that?
Sure, I'll send that to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So now we
All
are
right.
on to Article 7, Capital
And-
Improvement Plan.
Correct. And I guess I'll share my screen again and try and find that. So the recommendation from the Capital Improvement Committee, and this has been also voted by the Select Board. Data processing, $35,000. This is to replace obsolete and unrepairable equipment or technology. Police Department, $21,000. This is year 2 of 5 of their taser replacement program. Their tasers have hit their life expectancy, and so they're replacing them. And along with the $21,000, they receive training videos and targets to practice. Next is the fire department.
Sorry, Mike.
Replace- Oh, go ahead.
Do you think you're sharing? Because I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Sorry about that. Didn't mean to interrupt, but you were going through and I can't see something.
You do have a copy of that, or you should at least.
Yes, but
Right, I just,
trying to find it and there's a lot of it.
I know.
All right. Am I sharing?
Yes.
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 All right.
But
Thanks, Joe.
It's not, oh wait, yes it is. Sorry, go ahead.
Next is the fire department. They'll replace a pickup truck, and 50% of that will come out of the ambulance fund and 50% out of capital. And then replace a brush fire tank pump skid for $20,000. And then the library is $50,000. They had proposed this before, and then it was put on hold to see if that could possibly be included with the town hall project, but it's not able to be part of that project. So they're looking for $50,000 to do some milling and paving and striping in the parking lot. So the the total is $158,500.
Any questions? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend Article 7.
And I should stand corrected. It's 191,000 with 158,500 coming out of capital.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paul.
I move that we recommend Article 7, 158,500 from capital, 32,500 from the ambulance reserve for the capital improvement plan, a total of $191,000.
Second.
Take a roll call vote. Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
and I too am yes. It is unanimous. Next up, 11.
Okay.
Is that next? Mike?
Yes. So Article 11 is, am I sharing?
Yes.
Okay. So this would be to amend the salary plan. And the way I did this was I looked at CINA A, which is the supervisors union, and in their contract, they're allowed a 2% increase, and then there's another 3% possible based on evaluation and performance and availability of funds. So that's up to 5% total. This is not saying anyone is getting these amounts, but this would stretch out through FY25. I took into account if someone got 5% a year for 3 years, what the max would end up being. And that's how we came up with this chart.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Sandy.
My question about I see that the starting on the proposed are all about 4.5% above the starting currently, but the ending seems to kind of all be all over the place in terms of some of them are up significantly, some of them are actually down. What was the rationale that you used to get the high end proposed?
Sure. Part of the rationale is where are people at now that are in the positions. And some of the positions aren't filled, but some of the ones where people are getting close to the cap, we based it on where they were.
Is that in line with, in terms of surrounding towns, the comps?
Yeah. Yeah, we did, some of them you can compare and some of them you can't. So, we did check with some of the surrounding towns. So say like highway superintendent in Foxborough, it's 141,773 to 169,416. In West Bridgewater, 131,000, Swansea, 126,929. So the average is about 140,000. Assistant to town manager goes from 86,000 to 148,000, but averages out about 106,000. And office administrator averages out at 65,704 from the high in Foxborough again of 80,933 and the low in Swansea of 55,000. And town clerk goes from a high of 110 in Foxborough to 78,000 in West Bridgewater, 78,500 in Swansea, Tax collector goes from a high of 110 in Foxborough to 88 in West Bridgewater, 93, 287 in Swansea. And we're still waiting for other towns to respond on that. So the average is 94,326 on that one. And then a lot of the others really didn't match up. Water and sewer superintendent, you have 121,805 in Foxborough to 108,000 in West Bridgewater, and Swansea doesn't have it. Town accountant, 110,053 in Foxborough, and then the assistant town accountant, 110,053 in Foxborough, and 52,000 in West Bridgewater. So it's not really a good, reliable range there.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Zach?
Mike, I guess I got to state the obvious. What town pays the director of Parks and Recreation $20 an hour?
Parks and Rec, let's see. So Foxborough is 38 to 47, and then West Bridgewater didn't have anybody, and Swansea, it's 58,600 a year.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Cody?
Mike, you're referencing Foxborough, I don't know, they're close. What's the tax base of Foxborough compared to us versus us compared to Mansfield or Easton?
Yeah, I don't have that with me. I know when we worked before with the select board to set up, there was like 5 towns, and Foxborough was one of them as a local town. And then Rockland is another one, Wareham. Those are ones that I'm waiting for responses back from.
And those are presumably their tax base is
correct,
in line with ours, and that's why it's used that way.
Yeah, tax base, population.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Steve?
Mike, there's no independent group that puts together these kind of ranges with factoring, for exactly what Cody was talking about, for the differences between towns. Each town has to go out and reach out to who they feel is appropriate.
Yeah, you really, towns will go out and they'll hire someone to do it. But we pick the towns that we feel more similar to us, and then we go out and just ask them to fill in the form for us.
And with this listing of positions, what number is at their max right now, and they couldn't go any higher unless this was changed?
Let me see. The treasurer collector is would be maxed out.
That's it?
Yeah.
Is that a new position? No, a newly filled position?
It is.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Joe?
I'm just curious if anyone has this answer. Great. Why? I'm glad we have these numbers for reference. Why do we call them out specifically in the bylaw, which means that anytime they change, we have to vote an amendment instead of having it somewhere else?
It's unfortunate. It's the way that Massachusetts establishes who can have contracts and who can't. So these are all the non-union people that can't have contracts. It's state law.
Okay, so we're required to have them in there.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bill?
Mike, didn't we do this like a year ago?
We did it in 2020.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Madam Chair.
you're welcome.
Sorry, Cody, did you just?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if we did this, that was gonna be one of my questions when the last time we did this was, if we're doing this again now, why we would lower the tap end if we're just gonna end up having to come back later on and raise it back up. That was the first thing. And then the other thing, I just did a quick search on Foxborough on their operating budget, and their operating budget's about $20 million more than ours.
Yeah.
More than Milton's. So
Yeah, I do see one thing on there, Cody, that you brought that up.
there's a couple of them that are lower.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. I'll bring
Yeah,
it back.
we've
Bring
got-
it back to you next Monday.
Yeah, water and sewer superintendent was lower. Public health nurse was lower.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Kevin?
I just throw out that I think that we should be careful when we monitor the tax bases of other towns, thinking about whether my company is running a profit or not. I still want to attract the best talent. What our revenue streams are kind of sometimes are independent of what the market's driving some of these.
That's true. That's a big issue right now, obviously. But let me look at those corrections and get it back to you next week.
Okay. So we'll just revisit Article 11 next Monday?
Yep.
Okay.
And the next article is Article 12. You have a petition article for the creation of a finance appointing committee.
I do. I have a letter to read into the record. I believe you all received it in your packet from the petitioner. So I was going to do that first, if that's all right with everyone. All right, away we go. It is dated September 22nd, 2022, and it says, "Dear Madam Chair, I am writing to you regarding my citizens petition article creating a finance appointing committee. I would ask that this letter be read into the Finance Committee's record. This proposal was first presented to the Finance Committee by Select Board member Michael Toole last year. This year, due to the lack of interest in moving it forward by the Select Board, I have chosen to move it forward as a citizens petition at the fall town meeting. This article proposes changes to our town's bylaws and charter that are not only necessary but beneficial to one of the town's most important committees for many reasons. 43% of towns in Bristol, Plymouth, Middlesex, and Norfolk counties appoint through some form of committee. Selection would be made by more than one person. Committee members would be appointed by elected members of the town. The change would provide more diverse member appointments. Finance appointment committee meetings, deliberations, and applications would be required to follow all open meeting laws. While the above list is a few justifications, it is not limited to these reasons alone for my petitioning of town meeting. The ultimate reason for this letter is to inform you and the Finance Committee that, respectfully, I will not be presenting the town meeting article to the Finance Committee for your review and will move the article myself at town meeting. Not presenting or debating the town meeting article by the Finance Committee at this time will avoid any true perceived conflict of interest as the article pertains to the makeup of the Finance Committee itself. Thus, I ask that the Finance Committee to leave all debate on this town meeting article for the town meeting itself and take no action on this town meeting article. Sincerely, Mark Sweeney, Laurel. And it was sent to Michael Toole, Michael Units, and Michelle Brown. Any questions or discussion? You all have the proposed charter change in your materials.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Amy.
I guess I have, well, two things to say about this. The first is that I have all the same reservations about this petition coming from a citizen that I had from Mr. Toole on the select board when we discussed this last time. And I'd be happy to enumerate what those are if you would like me to, but I think we very much beat that horse to death the last time. So I don't know if we need to beat it again. But I also kind of have an issue being told that we should or shouldn't vote and how to vote by someone who isn't a member of this body, who is then telling us that the way that this committee is formed is inadequate and improper, but then also telling us how we should vote or not vote.
I
Any
agree.
questions?
So I would be
Comments?
happy to let anybody else speak on this topic, but I'd also like to move that we vote to recommend this, but then vote no.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody.
having not been privy to the previous conversation of the Finance Committee when Mr. Toole presented this, I would love to share my 2 cents.
As far as I'm concerned, this meeting is to discuss articles on the town meeting warrant, and that is what we are tasked with doing as per town charter. So you are welcome to share your opinion.
I'm sure a lot of these are probably overlapping concerns on what was shared under the previous proposal that was presented. I voiced my concern, at least on social media platforms, that the way that I see this crafted introduces a level of conflict of interest that does not currently exist. As I understand it and appreciate the way that we are currently formed and appointed is by a duly elected public official that has no specific interest in any of the articles or proposals that come before the Finance Committee to begin with. And the reasoning for that is to prevent a conflict of interest. And my own personal experience in the corporate world, where we have to do annual ethics, continuing education credits for maintaining licensing, this is, very clearly introducing a level of conflict of interest whereby people who are appointing to a body that then oversees those very people that are presenting to that body, whether or not the individuals that sit on the committee feel like there's a conflict or not, there's an inherent ability to introduce a conflict of interest that doesn't exist whenever you have a neutral third party that's appointed. That is probably my largest single concern with the way it's presented. I have no issues with discussing the way that individuals on this committee are appointed. I think it's open for debate, it's open for discussion. I wish that the individual that brought this would be here so we could actually discuss the rationale behind the proposed panel of appointing members and why it was deemed to be more appropriate than the way it's currently formed. But we don't have that benefit. And I would second Amy's concern that I really don't particularly care to be told by somebody telling us how he thinks we should be formed, how we then should present this to the town. When it is our job as the Finance Committee to review all of these things, discuss all of these things, formulate either an opinion or a recommendation and present that at town meeting. That's what we're here for. And somebody telling us, I don't agree with the way that you're formed in the first place, and I think that you should not tell everybody whether or not you agree with me is underhanded at best. That's my 2 cents.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Zach.
I guess I have a little bit of different view on this than everybody else. In regards to the article, I have no comment on how the select board, the finance committee is selected. My concern is that, you know, I consider this committee non-political. I do understand what the charter says, and I understand that we're supposed to vote on everything that comes in front of us. But this is a political argument. And even, you know, in my view, and I'm sure many will disagree, us even discussing it damages this committee. I know some of you just went on social media. I saw some of those posts. But for me, I don't have an opinion either way. As far as I'm concerned, what I agree with the petitioner on is let the townspeople decide what they want to do with the committee and how they want to appoint this committee. The fact that the members of the finance committee are discussing the appointment of the finance committee isn't, in my view, and is a conflict in itself. You may not agree with that, but that's how I see it. And I just think let the townspeople decide what they want to do. And for me, it's going to be the same vote as I had the last time. If you guys want to vote it, I will abstain because I don't do politics here. I will leave politics. Most faces here have engaged in politics, but this is not the place and time for that. And I personally will stay 10 feet away from it. Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments? I see Bill waving his hand. All right. Bill, you just need to unmute.
There we go. Thank you for that, Sheila. And I respect Zach's position, but if the finance committee is not going to give its opinion on articles before town meeting, then I suggest you disband, because it's the only reason you exist is to give your opinions and your recommendations on all, and it says you shall give your recommendations on all articles to come before the town meeting. And I wanted to speak to this, and you can tell how badly I wanted to speak to it, because I sat through the longest I've sat through a finance committee meeting in about 20 years. But this is so important. Zach is absolutely right that this is political. This is 100% political. And I understand there are some people who really believe that this changing to this system would be better. With those people who truly hold that belief, I just believe they're wrong. But I don't think they're being political. But I think the sponsors of the article are being very political, and this is an attempt to undermine the integrity of the finance committee and to gain control of it. That's what it's all about. Let's not kid each other. Let's not, let's not, play any games or anything else. I wanted to tell you, I spent 15 years as a member of the finance committee, and then I spent 12 years as the appointing authority to the finance committee. One of the few people that's still around that has seen that from both sides. And I can tell you that it is vitally important to keep the finance committee insulated from the departments that spend the most money and sponsor the most warrant articles. That's not politics, that's common sense. I know I sent you guys some emails, and I said, to do what this petition says is literally putting the foxes in charge of hiring the guards for the hen house. I mean, that's just literally what it is. And it's disrespectful to town meeting. It's disrespectful to the finance committee. The reason that the town moderator was set up originally to do this was because the people in town, when they passed these bylaws, they didn't want to mix these two. They didn't want the people appointing the finance committee who were then going to submit the budgets and the warrant articles. They wanted a degree of separation. And that's what you have. And not a single petitioner that I have heard, and if any of you have heard, please let me know, not a single one of them has said the finance committee is ineffective or the system is hurting the finance committee. They all, in fact, go out of their way to say the situation has worked well. We've had good finance committees, and we're not saying it's been a problem, but we're saying it could be. Well, I could be 6'4" and handsome, but I'm not. And this is, you know, we need to deal in what we have. I've heard transparency given as a reason to do this. I find it interesting that people who argue for transparency and getting things out in the open can't come to a public finance committee meeting and defend their article that, you know, that they are pushing. That's not transparency. That's trying to maintain a political edge for as long as you can. It's really kind of shameful that there's no petitioner here to speak to this article, because the townspeople don't get to hear the arguments. You know, they want as little time as possible for this to happen. And this is where it should be discussed and where it should have happened. But I appointed some of you originally to the FinCom, and not all of you were appointed the first time you applied. You know, it was, that's probably the most difficult job of a town moderator, is not appointing good people. You have one opening and 4 good people, which happens very seldom, and you have to make a decision. It's not the kind of thing you want to give to a board that's going to sponsor articles. And especially, I mean, we talk about, you know, well, you know, if we had this committee, they would be elected by the people. Last time I looked, the town moderator is elected by the people, and elected specifically for the kind of goal that this inspires. There is no transparency problem, but if there was, and I respect people who think that the appointment process should be more open. And that's why I sent you a sample. If transparency was really the issue, they would be providing a sample bylaw. Like I know I sent at least some of you a sample bylaw that would basically say, let the town moderators interviews with any prospective applicant be in an open session, be open to the public, be recorded, have minutes, you know, write that into the bylaws if that's what you want. All of you have been through the interview process with a town moderator. And aside from the fact that I'm sure you agree that it would be pretty boring for people to watch, but also there's no secrets. There's no secret oath that you take. There's no one, you know, in 12 years of being moderator, I believe I was at maybe half a dozen finance committee meetings. And that's because once you appoint them, you leave them alone. I haven't heard that the finance committee isn't diverse. One of the goals of the moderator is to, if the committee's got mostly younger people on it, then when you get good people, you want to appoint maybe an older person, or vice versa. Gender plays a role. You want to make it equal. All those things have happened. This is a solution in search of a problem. There is no problem, and I know that I think a lot of you agree with this, so I'm not gonna, you know, beat the dead horse. But I believe, and I'm telling you this from years of experience, which you may or may not think is important. This is one of the most dangerous articles I've ever seen presented to a town meeting. It undermines the very objectivity and integrity of the Finance Committee. In my mind, the Finance Committee, arguably over the last 40 years, at least that I know of, has been the most effective committee in town. And so what do we want to do? We want to change the most effective committee in town. That makes no sense. I offered the petitioner my help in creating a bylaw that would make the interview process public to address their transparency issues, even though I I don't think there are any. I just urge you not only to vote not to recommend this, but at town meeting, I urge you to speak very much against it. Because if you don't speak to it, you are the ones who know. If you remain silent on this, then how do the townspeople know? They'll know what they're told by others. They need to hear from you. Just like they need to hear from you on the budget, just like they need to hear from you on land taking articles. We don't need to put the appointment process into the hands of various town boards, some of which we never get people running for the office. Some of which we've had no one on the ballot several times in the last few years. This is a power grab. It's political, and I urge you very much. I'm not urging you to be political. I'm urging you to be truthful, to tell it like it is, and to do your job, which I know you will all do. And I just want to make sure that as a former moderator, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I didn't at least tell you that, in my opinion, this is a very dangerous article. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else have a comment?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paul.
just to give my 2 cents as well. I definitely want to vote on this evening. And I also see the conflict of interest. I don't understand how someone from the planning board could be on this committee and appoint a finance committee member when they put forth several articles on the warrants at town meetings, along with the select board. It makes sense for the moderator to continue appointing, as being an elected official in town. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Paul.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Steve.
I pretty much agree with what everyone else has said. The one thing I would like to see, however we handle it going forward, though, is just a report from the moderator that would tell us when these positions are open, simply how many people were interviewed, things like that, just so we know. We really don't get that. We just all of a sudden have a meeting and one day somebody new was on the committee.
That is true. Thanks, Steve. Anyone else? I've only heard from a few people in terms of how they feel we should handle this, in terms of making a motion, making a recommendation. I think all of you know that if we always vote in the affirmative, so we would vote to recommend Article 12, and then if your vote was to not recommend it, your individual vote, then you would vote no. And then were that to carry with 6 votes or more, then that would be, I think if it has 5, actually, if it's 5 to 5, it carries, or it does not carry. I'm not sure. We can figure that out if it comes to that. But that would be how we would handle it. So we would have a motion for Article 12, and then we would vote as we vote. But if you wanted it not to be recommended, you would just vote no, or you could abstain, as I know someone mentioned. So what is the pleasure of this committee? We can vote no action is another way to vote.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody.
I'd like to make a motion that we, to recommend Article 11.
It's 12.
12.
Second.
Right, any discussion?
To be clear, if we do not want to recommend this, we vote no, correct?
Correct. So yes, if you want to recommend it, you vote in the way that it's printed by the petitioner, you would vote yes. If you do not want to recommend it, you vote no. And it is always, typically you state a reason, you don't have to. But if you would like to abstain, that's always your choice as well. Shall we vote? Because I do have a motion and a second. Great. Kevin,
No.
Paula,
No.
Steve?
No, and I hope we get 3,000 people at the meeting to have good banter and debate, to be honest.
That would be a crisis for the moderator, and for the folks that run town meeting. But we won't let them know that you're the one that said that. Or maybe we should. I'm not sure.
I'll let them know, seeing how I'm the only non-political.
Sure. Sandy?
No.
Joe?
No.
Bill?
No.
Amy?
No.
Cody?
No.
Zach?
Abstain.
Thank you. And I too am a no. So that is 0 yes, 9 no, and 1 abstention. So it has not been recommended. All right, Article 14. Mike, you're on mute. But I think we only have 14 and 15 left. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay.
So Article 14 is OPEB, and our liability is 100 million. We're never getting there, but you know, the actuarials of several years ago said we have to start putting money into our OPEB, or it would haunt us when we go out to borrow. So I'm recommending we put $115,000 into OPEB, which would be 5,000 more than we put in last year.
All right. Well, if Paul were here, he would have a lot to say. We know. So a little shout out to him. We miss him. Any other discussion, questions, or comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Joe.
just for the record, Mike, can you go through your thought process on increasing it 5,000? I'm not against that in any way. I just want to understand.
Just to show that we are going up and what we're contributing in our financial policy manual, we said that we would work towards getting to a commitment of $200,000 a year, but we'll have to work on that gradually. And so this would be moving us in a positive direction.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yep.
How many other towns are actually funding something? I know this is one of those crazy actuarial projections, but how many towns in Massachusetts are actually funding it versus no action or not funding it?
I'd be surprised if there were any towns that weren't funding it with something. I know there's only one town that fully funded it,
right.
But I'd be surprised if towns weren't making an effort.
Any other questions?
I've got one question. It's just a point on our prior conversation about the 7,000 that we approved. How does that differ from the allocations under OPEB?
So the OPEB is a trust fund that is strictly for retiree health insurance benefits. And right now, last year we earned $58,125.85 in interest. So we are making some money.
That's pretty great, actually.
Yeah, considering what the market did. Well, I guess that was last year, not this year.
Yeah.
But the market doesn't drive interest, so interest rates are up.
Any other comments or discussion? Questions? My thumbs. Thought somebody was about to jump to make one. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to recommend $115,000 for Article 14 OPEB.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paula.
I move that we recommend Article 14 transfer $115,000 from free cash, correct, into OPEB?
Correct.
Second,
Thank you, Bill. We'll take a roll call vote. Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Steve,
No.
Sandy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Zach.
Yes.
And I too am a yes. That is 9 yes and 1 no and 0 abstentions. Article 15.
Article 15 is our stabilization fund, and I'm recommending that we put 200,000 in the stabilization fund.
Any discussion or questions about that?
Madam Chair.
Amy? Yes.
Mike, what's our current stabilization balance? It's probably in the paperwork, but
It's okay. The current balance is $2,597,497.
awesome.
And I don't know, you have some newer members, so just for the newer members, a stabilization fund, if money was to be taken out of the stabilization fund for anything, it requires a 2/3 vote at town meeting.
And we discussed this last time, I think, right, Mike, or the time before, stabilization funds like the rainy day fund, basically.
Correct. Yeah. And in water and sewer, they have their retained earnings, which is like stabilization. And the recommendation under those accounts is that they have 20% of their budget in their retained earnings. Ours is 5%.
And given that we had 4 million plus in free cash last year, we put in 400,000.
Yes.
So
We're getting to almost that 5% benchmark, right?
We are.
that's, that's our
Oh,
AA plus rating right there.
A plus plus.
I thought it was AA plus. I'm
Double A plus sounds like
Double A
something
Double A.
right on your homework.
yeah, when our kids start coming home saying, I didn't just get an A plus, I got a double A plus. I'm not sure about that.
It's, one question on that. Is this in an account that is invested or it accrues interest or invested in bonds or,
I'd have to check with the treasurer what this is invested in, or if James is on, he may know. It did earn an FY22 $32,918 in interest.
Okay. And in theory, if we hit the 5%, then we wouldn't have to do any additional funding as long as it ticked up with our annual budget.
Right. And 2007 interest rates must have been pretty good because we had a balance of 944,000 and we made 53,000 in interest.
Buying low.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for Article 15, the Stabilization Fund, for $200,000. Go to the Stabilization Fund from free cash.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paula?
I move that we recommend Article 15, 200,000 from free cash into stabilization fund.
Second,
Thanks, Bill. And here's the roll call. Kevin?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I too am a yes. That is 10, and it's unanimous. I don't know of any other articles. So do you have anything else for us, Mike?
No, that wasn't as fast as your first meeting.
Well, it wasn't, but there's reasons for that. We got accomplished so much tonight, and I'm so happy about
Good
that.
job. Thank you.
There was the September 12th, I want to say, minutes
Renee?
that I sent out. So if those have been reviewed, which I know they have, prior to this meeting, and as before, I believe everyone was here, but it was pointed out that we are all welcome to vote whether or not we attended that meeting, because you are trusting that the other members of the committee that were there that night that are voting in favor, you're trusting that they, you have no reason to doubt that they are letting you know that the minutes are accurate. So I will not call on you first, Kevin, since I know you were not there. Oh, no, you were there. This was just 2 weeks ago. Sorry. So the chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes from September 12th, 2022, as they have been written up by our recording secretary.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paul.
I move that we recommend the minutes from September 12th, 2022 as written.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. And we will vote. Kevin.
I control F my last name before voting yes.
Control F. What does that mean?
Find my last name in the Word document. Make sure I
Oh.
was there.
You were there.
Bad joke.
All right. All right. We got it. You were there. Paula.
Yes.
Steve.
Abstain.
Sandy.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Cody.
Yes.
Zach.
Yes.
And I too am a yes. So that is 9 yes and 1 abstention. All right. Is there any other business to come before this board this evening?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Steve?
Just two questions. One is, have we been receiving the management reports or the financial reports from the schools? I don't remember seeing anything for this fiscal year. And it could be me, I haven't been diligent checking my account, my email account. But if we haven't, I would respectfully ask you to lay out what the requirement is. It should be monthly.
Yep, I will do that.
And the other thing we had pending, just to get into the minutes, we were going to get information on the Hicks funds, how it works, and I don't think we've got any of that information either.
Yeah, I don't see Mike is still here. Yes, I will ask you for that.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, it looks like our next meeting will be next Monday, October 3rd. And I always like to mention during these meetings, because I'm sure everyone who has been watching or will be watching this wants to know, the town meeting is in 3 weeks on October 17th at the high school at 7 p.m. Any other discussion, questions, thoughts, opinions, remarks? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:44 p.m.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paula.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Nice. We will vote. Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
and I too am a yes. It is unanimous. Thank you all, and see you next month.